Welcome all to the Upper Hunter Shire Council Corporate Services Committee meeting on the 13th of December 2023. I call this meeting open at 9 o'clock. And if I could pass the General Manager, if we've got any applications for attending by video link.
As nil, Mr. Chair.
While you're there, any apologies?
Nil as well.
Do we have any disclosures of interest?
None have been received to date.
And public participation for this meeting?
Nil public participation.
Wonderful. Righto. All that being the case, we'll move on to our business items. Mr. Phelps, if you could run us through the financial summary and investment report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Overall, we'll just go to page 3, which is the first report. More or less down the bottom of that page is just the summary of the financial information, showing that we're just under $7 million positive variance to budget at this point in time to the end of November, compared to 2.13 in October. There's a number of factors that come through and make that up. One primary factor, which we'll go through in looking at the main reasons for the positive variation. Overall, our revenue streams are up by about $6.5 million. So with the Government Place Hostel, we've had a bit of increased funding from the new funding model that the government brought in for the aged care industry, even though we've had a few vacancies still out at the Government Place facility. So at the moment we're running with, I think, 2 vacancies, but our actual revenue streams are up, which is quite pleasing. Our early learning centre, it's been higher by about $250,000, which is a great result. The utilisation of the facility has increased over the course of the last 5 months, which has been great. We've had receipt of a number of pre-big school grants, which is prior to going off to primary school and kindergarten. So we've received a bit of those in advance coming through. We will probably see a little bit of a dip at the moment because we've just recently got a vacancy in our ECT, which means that our numbers will have to come back based on the ratio of children to educators over at the facility. So it could come back a little bit over the course of the next couple of months. Family daycare, again, with the demand, we've provided good service to the community, and our revenue is up by $60,000. Waste facility is up by nearly $1 million. Again, our waste disposal revenue has been increased coming through, which is quite good. And our scrap metal sales are a bit of a timing thing in regards to those. We've had those earlier than what we anticipated coming into the period that we're in now. General revenue is up by about $160,000, just a little bit of a top up with the financial assistance grants, plus also higher returns on our investments from what we depicted in the original budget coming through. The big kicker is really the local roads side of things. It's up by about $4.5 million, which is pretty well the receipt of the new funding model that the state government has brought out in regards to the repair program for a lot of our roads. Last year we received about $3.2 million in funding, which was to help facilitate road repairs across the region and local roads. And they've topped that up with another $4.5 million. That's over a 4-year frame. Initially they gave us 3.2 last year to tell us to spend it in 12 months, which was not feasible. We didn't have the resources, contractors to undertake that work. So the government has actually seen that, topped it up with a bit more money and spread it out over a 4-year frame. We'll be utilising that over that 4-year frame. So it'll go off into a reserve and be brought in to actually do the repairs on those roads coming through. And that entails a lot of heavy patchwork coming into the mix as well. But also we'll be utilising a lot of our own labour staff to do a lot of the maintenance side of things as well. State roads revenue is lower by about $290,000. We haven't had many requests coming through from the Transport for New South Wales to date, but we know that there's some money coming in regards to a lot of requests that they're going to require. Obviously, they hold back earlier in the year, and then all of a sudden, come this next 6 months, they start asking for us to do work before the end of June so they can spend their budget allocation. So it'll catch up, no doubt, over the course of the next probably quarter and a half. Water supply revenue is up by about $500,000. We've had some more Section 64 contributions coming through, which has been great. And our consumption fees have been up, obviously, with a bit of the dry weather. Our consumption fees have been up for the first and second quarter. So we'll be looking at projecting that forward now and bringing forward some votes to build that into the budget coming through over the course of the next meeting in December.
Just a question on that, please, through you, Mr. Chair. There's been a few reports that people are seeing higher bills, which obviously is because of the higher consumption. But how many reports are we getting, or questions are we getting about broken meters and water leaks and things around the Shire?
Through you, Mr. Chair, none above what normally would happen, as far as I'm aware.
No worries.
Yep.
Can we just get that reported to the next month?
Yep.
So if
Take that on notice.
Eddie's just popping up a bit.
Yep, take that on
you.
notice. So it's been quite pleasing. The non-operating revenue and expenditure is behind by about nearly $750,000. Now, a lot of that is relating to our internal fleet hire coming through. We're actually doing a business service review over the internal fleet hire to ensure that we're utilising our plant efficiently and effectively coming through. Obviously, there is operator vacancies that we do still maintain, which obviously is a course that we've had to track over the course of the last probably 2 to 3 years. Obviously paying for those, the remuneration from council compared to a lot of other industries around the area makes it extremely difficult to attract good operators into the system. The other one there is the quarry revenue is lower by about 100,000. We're expecting that to increase significantly. We've had a lot of blasting going on at the moment with the out at some of our quarry sites, and that material will start to flow through as revenue into those capital works projects coming into the mix. Our operating expenditure, I beg your pardon, is higher by about $1 million. Overall, the main areas in this one is effectively Government Place is still running pretty heavily on costs at the moment, with personal care staff and some consultants that we've been utilising to date to maintain our compliance areas. So it's offset a fair bit of the gains that we've had coming through. You will see that there'll be probably a little bit further spike in regards to the personal care wages coming through, because obviously, as everyone would have heard, that there's been a massive increase in the award coming through for the staff out there, which is well deserving in my respect. So we'll have to factor our way through that. Early learning costs are up by about 60,000, which is a bit of an offsetter against the 250 over the other side. Obviously, with more utilisation of facility, staffing costs have gone up as well. Town planning costs are up by about 72,000. We've had to use a few additional costs in regards to consultants with the new planning portal, which is grant funded, and also we're doing a lot of land studies. It's a bit of a timing thing. We have got them in the budget, but we undertook those land studies a little earlier than what we anticipated. So we'll just move the timing of that money coming through. A big driver for the increase in costs has been the quarry costs. It's up by about 329,000. It's costs associated with the major blasting of the quarry sites out of the Kewen and also up at Elliston. And that's mainly to gain material. So hopefully we'll reap the rewards of the actual material that's been blasted and bring that through as revenue streams into the quarry area for a lot of those major capital projects up Moonam Brookway, plus also around the other parts of the Shire.
Just through you, Mr. Chair, a question on that, Wayne. It's around 29,000, but we're sourcing our gravel within 10 kilometres of our project works instead of coming from Willow Tree.
Correct.
So that figure will certainly level out after we get all our jobs completed.
Yeah, it'll have an effect on the actual capital works budgets that we do have in place, because we might be able to get further with those grant funded capital works than what we anticipated by trucking in gravel over the course of from Willow Tree and other sources, probably from down Muswellbrook Way as well. So there will be benefits coming through. It'll trickle back through the other way. We will get the revenue also coming through the internal method of recovering that blasting costs through those capital works projects as well, through the cost of the material coming back out of the quarries. Local road maintenance is lower by about $350,000. We've obviously prioritised a lot of our work in regards to the flood damage that was required to be completed. So even though we've got a healthy roads budget coming through from a maintenance perspective, so we're just more or less prioritising a lot of our workforce towards maintaining a lot of the flood restoration works that is required by the disaster people, natural disaster through Transport for New South Wales. So we'll be doing that probably over the course of the next 12 months at least. With that, we undertake a lot of the restoration works from the flood works, but also then we spread that out to actually do a bit of maintenance grading around the area as well when we're out in those sites, because a lot of the restoration works is only for 100 to 300 meters. So it's not worth sending a full grader crew out there. We'll just utilize our grader crew and do a bit of extra work out there from a maintenance perspective. Our sewer mains and maintenance and treatment activities up by about nearly $500,000. Reviewing those costs, there's capital works in there in regards to a lot of the relining works that was undertaken, and we'll do an allocation across to the capital works program for that. Water supply costs are up by about $190,000. Just reviewing those costs at the moment, they just seem a little bit high in a couple of the areas. So we're just going to go through and review and just make sure that there's no capital works that have ended up in that area. But that's all funded through the water fund reserve coming through the mix. The other item where we have a positive variance to budget is our capital works expenditure, which is about $2.2 million. The highlighted areas within this area is more or less our quarry exploration, I beg your pardon. More or less the additional costs involved with getting a DA to get further material out of the kiln. So that's coming to the end of its DA cycle. So we should be good to go in regards to gaining more material out of the kiln from that blasting that's been undertaken. So therefore we'll produce a bit more revenue. Playground equipment and fencing, there's been no scheduling to date in regards to the 88,000 we've got set aside to replace one of our playground area based on our prioritised list. And the fencing also then goes around it, obviously. So we haven't had that scheduled yet, but that hopefully will happen earlier into the next part of the year. Marolla Street Causeway is lower than budget by about $600,000. The final designs of that have just been finalised over the course of the last probably 2 weeks. So it should now go out for a request for quotes to start undertaking the work. I know that Restart New South Wales is keen for us to complete that by the end of the financial year, because it's been a project that's been hanging around for many, many years.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Can we please just get it done? It's been hanging around for 8 years. It is the relative will not leave after Christmas.
Yep.
Just get it done.
Just on that, as it's been around a long while, are we confident the scoping on that and the grant awarded will cover a large portion of the cost at least?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, as you're aware, most of the delay was in regard to trying to address differing points of view in the community about high level and low level causeways. We have settled on a low level causeway. It meets the funding requirements still because it allows for underwater flow under the causeway, as well as not impacting on the bridge aesthetics. So we think we found a solution that addresses the majority of people's needs, and it is scheduled to be completed by March next year.
And do we think this will run to budget?
Yes, we've got a considerable amount of money there, and being a relatively low level structure, we don't have to do the bridging type construction works. It's the estimates are looking comfortable at the moment.
Very good.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just on the Morello Causeway, residents have said they're concerned that they haven't seen the final design. And with you saying it's only been done in the last 2 weeks, will that be put on the website publicly that people can see that final design?
We can put it on. We won't be asking for further consultation at this stage, but we're happy to put it out there so that people can see the design. Yep.
And just to clarify that the further design was mainly around the technical specs of actually delivering the actual bridge or the causeway, as they say now. Moving into the next one there, which is our 14 bridge replacement program. There's a lot of ups and downs, obviously, within the capital expenditure report you will see there. But overall, our bridges are on track coming through, and they're going quite well against budget. So it's quite possible that a lot of those bridges will come in within budget from the revision that the Transport for New South Wales came up with when we initially went out to tender, when they were massively higher than what we had in our coffers. So that's quite pleasing. The footpath down at Bedford Street, there's been no works commenced on that yet. Just reviewing the delivery schedule and timing with that with the infrastructure folks. Regional and local road reseal program. We've engaged the resealer contractor and we're just waiting. So unfortunately, it's one of those things that we have to wait for their availability. And as soon as they become available, I know that they've been booked for up Moonam Brook Road and around all the approaches for the bridges in January next year. So fingers crossed that will be done. So a lot of those projects will be completed towards the back end of January, early February. The regional and local road heavy patch program, this is part of that, the money that the state government gave us for the 3.2 million and the 4.5 million. It's higher than budget at the moment by 100,000, which is quite pleasing. So it's progressing along quite well. Moonam Brook Road is one that's under budget significantly. It's down by about $2.7 million. All things are going ahead solidly up there at the moment. We're just getting some timing in regards to that budget moving forward. It's looking likely that could come under budget, and we might be able to get further length out of the road moving forward, which would be a great result. So we're just going through the process of looking at our actual budget forecasting in regards to that over the course of the next six months. Especially with that one, as well as the Barrington Forest roads as well. So we've got a lot of cost to those, about $5 million for the course of the next 6 months. Hunter Road, a little bit higher than budget, our revised budget, to say the least. So it's by about 80,000. That's money to acquire a lot of the culverts in advance. So we more or less put on the ground a lot of culverts because of the demand for culverts. We grabbed them as soon as we can, so it doesn't hinder any of our workflow. Gumman Lane, there's been no works commenced on Gumman Lane over at Merriwall today. Again, we'll have to talk to the infrastructure guys about the timing in regards to that project. Scone CBD and St Albans Street, construction is higher by about, it goes the other way to the Moonam Brook one with about 2.4 million. It's only a timing issue. We had a lower level of budget in there. So we will amend the budget coming through, and but everything's on track with the primary contractor coming through. So everything's still meeting budget specs. Moving into our village retic system.
Sorry, through you,
Yep.
Mr. Chair. So just on the CBD, you're saying that it's higher than revenue by 2.38 million. Is that because we're ahead of schedule? Explain the timing to me.
When we commence the budget process, we phase our expected expenditure and timing of the payments to the contractor on a best estimate of their work schedule. At the moment, whilst the overall project is on track, we are ahead of their schedule for payments. So they've been paid more than the original budget estimated phasing, but there's no additional payment to be made to the contractor. They've just been paid early because they've reached milestones earlier.
Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair. Also, just on the Moonam Brook Road construction, I'd been advised that there'd been a change in contractor. Has that made a difference to timing and delivery?
Through the chair, no. The works that were done by the other contractor, those works had finished. So then effectively it went on to another spec of works. So along those lines, it's just a use of contractors as and when they're available and what their skill sets are.
Okay, so basically the first contractor had finished their tender and
That-
we re-tendered for an extra part of it. Is that the case?
Yeah, we actually go through a schedule of rates. So we have a list through the preferred supplier list of a lot of our contractors. So when we look at works, we'll provide those to the different contractors coming through. The works for the contractor that's no longer there had finished. I've been made aware of that happened. And then the works went on to other contractors that are actually undertaking different parts of the work up there, up at Barrington Forest Road and so forth. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving into the village retic system, project continuing on schedule. It's a bit lower than budget by about 140,000. The Scone and Aberdeen mains renewals is lower by about 330. Works are obviously continuing there. It's just a timing thing in regards to the invoices coming through. The Glenbourne pipeline valve replacement, no works have commenced yet. I'm just reviewing the project timing and the availability of the contractor to undertake those works. And the sewer pond treatment ponds, the clean out over there, it's lower than budget by about 100,000. It's nearing completion, and it looks like it'll come in a little bit lower than what we anticipated, which is quite good coming through. So overall, it's just under $7 million positive variance to budget. You'll note that we'll have about a $4.5 million vote coming through for that initial revenue streams for the local roads repair program coming into the mix from transport. Overall, the net variations is nil. The budget stays on track as it stands. Bank funds at the moment is sitting at 30.1 million, or 30.65 million, I beg your pardon. Cash on investments is 29.6, as which there'll be a schedule attached to the actual report. Our loans at the moment is about $30.7 million outstanding at the end of November. So there's another schedule there in regards to our loan facilities. And the capital expenditure, as you can see there, we've spent 18 million so far this financial year, which is 28%. So at the moment, there's about 40% through the year. So we need to catch up a little bit of that. There's a lot of chunky costs coming into our budget, which will be Main Road 358. So there's about $10 million towards the back end of the year for 358. So there's a lot of chunky expenditure expected to come over the course of the next 7 months. Just moving then down into page 10, just got the summary there of the funds themselves and how they're sitting. And then it goes into the function areas where just the service areas coming through. As you'll see there, there's the request vote for the 4.485 million in that additional funding coming into the mix. On the bank reconciliation on 14 there, you'll see there's a bit of a dip up there, obviously with the money coming through from the Transport for New South Wales towards that repair funding. There's obviously a spike going back up the mix there. You'll find that word will go up and down over the course of the next 7 months based on a lot of the chunky expenditure and chunky milestone payments from grant funding coming in and out. So that you'll see a little bit of a wobble of the worm coming through, but it should level out towards the back end of the year.
Through you, Mr. Chair. The bank loans used to have whether they were fixed or variable, but I couldn't see that in this month's report.
Yeah, they're all fixed. Yep. We have all our loans are fixed. We don't go onto the variable system. Just to provide a surety for going forward with budgets and so forth. Pretty well. Investment schedule on page 15 here, 29.6 million. So as you can see there, we've only got one in the very poor rates coming through, which is there for a while to come, which is the NAB Bank. But apart from that, we're hitting pretty well around 4s and upwards now, which is quite pleasing through the mix. And then you've got your loan facilities on page 16, which more or less goes through and depicts when the loans were drawn down, what the term were, and when we're expected those loans to mature over time. As you see there in the maturity dates, we've got a lot of loans that will come off probably the back end of this decade. So anywhere from, we've got a couple that finalised over the last couple of years, and then we'll have a number of coming off in 29s and 30s from the initial loans that were taken out by former councils.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. General Manager, when you're planning finances for the council to consider, do you take into account when loan schedule is coming off?
So we do a long-term financial plan. That's a 10-year strategy. The finance people, when they look at that, they have all the loan schedules in there. They know when those repayments will come off, and that forms part of that long-term financial plan for budgeting.
And that would be also, I'm guessing, why we only take out, I can't remember the word, fixed rate loans.
That's right. It gives more certainty. If you have variable, it could increase considerably on what you originally estimate in your 10-year estimates.
Thank you.
And also it could go down too. So you've got to weigh it up both ways. So as we've seen from loans that were initially taken out in the early years, high rates, then we took out a couple of major loans in over the last probably 5 years, real low rates because the market fell apart. But now if you take out a loan, it'd probably be 6% again. So it's sort of like going through the cycle. Moving then down into our capital works expenditure, just with the summary pages there, just to provide a overview of where all our capital projects are sitting. Obviously, it's the main part of our budget coming into the mix. And as you can see there, $18 million spent against year to date 20 million. Obviously, you've still got 43 million to spend over the course of the next 7 months. So that's just for your information. So you can have a read of that as it stands. Then we just move into our high level, just based on our services itself, just the income and expenditure coming through and where each of those services sit at the end of November, which depicts all our services. That comes through from page 28 through to 55. And that more or less just comes out of our financial system. And our final page to highlight is the 56, which is our budget variation request. So the only budget variation that we're doing for the current month is more or less to recognise that additional revenue coming in from transport. In December, obviously, there'll be a lot more budget movements based on the fact that we'll review our water fund and bring into account a bit of increase in our revenue there, waste the same. So there'll be a lot of movements in the December report itself. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Any questions?
Yeah, just on that funding there, the Westpac fund, what is our interest rate on that, the call fund? Do we have a variable rate on that, or how does that?
Yeah, it is a variable rate, and it's 3 parts of not much. Obviously, from a lot of banking side of things, but it's pretty well the washout account that we have funds in to maintain payments to suppliers and so forth. So where it comes in at 4.5, we probably had creditors to pay of so like 3 million the next week type thing.
Revolving line of credit. My internal line of credit, my curiosity here is we've received quite a substantial fund here to be expended over quite some years. I wonder if is there an opportunity there to make a little bit of interest on the side of that? Or is that available in the grant funding there, or can we do something there?
In what respect, sir?
4.5.
Oh, the 4.5 will be invested. Yeah. So overall, whatever surplus cash is available will go back into investments and invested over that period of time. But that's a windfall for the general fund to maintain, and also that general fund ultimately goes out to the community through services, road maintenance, everything.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I know I'm going backwards to page 16, but it's the loan schedule detailed. this council inherited over $7 million loans when I got on council. I'm just looking at the airport runway, still 308,000 owing, is that correct? On the runway upgrade back in whatever the date was,
2011.
yes,
So,
and that's
yep.
not due to be finished until 2031
Correct.
at
Yeah.
7.66%.
Yeah.
A lot of kerfuffle around the runway, so we inherited that runway, what I call a failure back then, because we've redone that runway and we're still paying for the bill. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's effectively, so those loans are continuing coming through, and the same for the sale yards. Sale yards, we borrowed $1 million to do the roofing out there, but then we upgraded, and that roofing, we pretty well got a loan on not new roofing for the old roofing that we've updated coming through.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just going back to the early learning centre, it's nice to see a positive variance of 186, which is good. Just to clarify, is the early learning centre, I know there's been statements that it's no longer before council currently for sale, but is it on the market in any capacity at this point in time?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we called expressions of interest. Those expressions of interest were reviewed by staff, and I think a few of those were actually brought back to this council, and none of them were attractive at that stage. We continue to have a relationship with the agent, so we're not actively advertising, but the agent will occasionally reach out to us and say, are we interested? We have said to the agent, if a offer comes to us that is attractive, we're happy to put it before council. So not actively advertising, but always, as with any business, if anyone wishes to make an offer and can provide a service at a lower price and provide a financial benefit to us and the ratepayers, we'll consider it. So that's the current situation with, is it Colliers we've got the relationship with?
Correct. Yeah. Colliers from Newcastle, Colliers International, whatever they call them.
Okay, so still on the market. That's good to know. Thank you.
Good question, councillor. All right, everybody else happy with any, with all of those? Any questions, comments before I take it to a vote? If everybody's happy with the recommendation, I'll call for a mover.
I'll move it with an addition.
Moved with an addition.
Yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, fine. 8. That this committee note that the Minister for Local Government sent out his findings on the petition to have this council sacked yesterday.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, is that a
Yeah,
corporate services matter?
I just actually questioning that, sorry, councillor Burns. I'm just, I'm wondering whether that's maybe the appropriate.
Well, the
place
petition
to
was
put
about the
that.
council's handling of the finances. So giving that we've just spoken about finance for the last 33 minutes, I would imagine, yes, it is corporate services purview.
It's through you, Mr. Chair. It's never been on the agenda in this committee, so it seems odd. I can understand it maybe coming back to the general council meeting, but I'm not sure what it has to do with corporate services.
I'd suggest, through you, Mr. Chair, that Councillor Burns, if you wish to discuss this and debate it, it would, through the council meeting. It can be noted today that you brought it up. It could go into correspondence, I suppose, in the corporate services.
Yep. If we could perhaps do that, how's your thoughts on that, councillor Burns?
I don't agree, but we'll go
Bring
with
it up
that
as a
'cause I've got to
separate
get to work. So
Item. We might bring it up as a councillor question or notation towards the end, if that would suit better. And then
no, it's all right. Just
and then
1
that
to
has
7,
its
just deal with it.
that has its own place in the minutes at that point.
Yeah.
So are you happy to move the motion of the 7 recommendations on
Yes,
that?
1 to 7.
Okay. And then we'll leave the other part till later. Right, we've got to move a motion. We've got a seconder for the councillor McKenzie, seconded. All those in favour? Right. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, yeah.
All those against? Councillor Flaherty against, and we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, which is
Just through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Can I ask a question to Councillor Flaherty?
Yes, I think we can. Yep.
Why, Councillor Flaherty, are you voting against the financial documents?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this seems to be a pattern of if I vote against a motion, the mayor starts questioning why, and seems quite upset about it. I have a right to vote for or against motions. That's my democratic right. And so
Yep.
I've voted against it, and I'm growing quite tired of being challenged about that every time I do.
Okay. No, I understand that. Is there any part of the discussion there you have issue with?
Oh, look, I think I've raised some issues throughout this. And again, you're kind of doing the same thing now, Adam. I appreciate it. But no, look, I think the vote has been made. I've said again. So I don't think I should then be challenged about it afterwards.
No,
Thank you.
I don't consider I'm challenging it. I'm curious.
Well, you can be curious, and I've raised things throughout. And
Yep,
so
No,
it
I
is,
respect that.
the votes happened.
Yep. I fully respect that. And with that, so we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, which is the property update. If we could run through that, please, General Manager.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Again, take the report as read. You'll notice there's an increase now to 30 properties now being leased, with the additional one being the Bent Prop Cafe out at the airport. We've now added that to the mix. In addition to that, there's a summary of where we're at with our property development strategy. Probably the two next pieces of work will be Hill Street and Sermon Street, taking that feasibility from our consultant and working through that for units on that those two parcels of land. In parallel with that, the Department of Planning have given approval for the reclassification of the community land in Hill Street to be exhibited. So there will be a process now for exhibition of the Hill Street land to be reclassified as operational. That will go through a process of community consultation, seeking any feedback from the community. And once that has occurred, a report will come back to council to make a determination as to whether or not to pursue that. Happy to take any questions if there's any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? All right, we've got a mover. Move Councillor Burns, second. Councillor McKenzie, all those in favour? I think the ayes have it. We'll move now forward to the Airport Management Committee, page 62 there.
Yeah, again, Mr. Chair, take the report as read, provides the summary of the last Airport Management Committee, the minutes, and a bit of an overall highlight of what's happening out at the airport. It's probably nothing to draw people's attention to, but if people got questions, any councillors have got questions in regard to that, happy to take those questions and provide responses.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just in terms of the maintenance repair works on the runway currently, I was asked, apparently in the method of works plan, there was going to be a coarse dry sand and small stone used in the maintenance work. But that has apparently changed, that they're no longer using the dry coarse sand. Can you explain to me why it's no longer being used? Because I've had mixed feedback from can't get the product to too expensive and will go over budget. So I'm keen to know why that was.
Okay, so there's no maintenance work on the runway itself. It was all on the taxiway. It was work undertaken by the contractor under warranty, so there was no cost to council. Their engineer had determined the method of repair, and that included a fine sand mix. When the contractor came to source that material, they couldn't actually obtain the exact material. It had to go through a particular sieve and get the right grading. Their engineer then redid an alternative design and came up with a mix that worked for the site with available materials. That was applied over a couple of days last week during hot weather. It was rolled in. I've had some reports back from the airport operations staff out there say that it's taken really well. There's no loose material, and we've had no problems, although given it's only been a week, we have, I guess, somewhat optimistic outlook on those repairs.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The changes that have happened to the runway, you know, right back from the hot mix change all the way through, and obviously now issues with the work that was done by the contractor and all those changes. Could I please have a report to see the documents on how those works have changed throughout this process and associated costs, either to the contractor under warranty or to us directly?
We can pull something together for the council. Yep, that's fine.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Another question. It's been brought to my attention that council seems to be, via a Facebook post yesterday, providing catering services. Is that an independent caterer who's come in to hire the function centre and provide those services, or what is that arrangement? Have we gone into the catering business now, divested ourselves of cafe and gone into catering? Like what, or is that completely just function hire space?
No, so we've always had a function hire space at Warbirds, and we've got a catering kitchen out there. One of our opportunities to try and raise the profile of the facility was to use our own catering staff to develop a Christmas menu for people who may wish to purchase a Christmas menu up to Christmas Eve. It's a bit of a trial. The idea is to try and get a bit of profile for the Warbirds, the venue centre, function centre and the venue, and also it will generate a small income stream as well. We're trying it. Whether it's successful or not will be, I guess, something we'll try, but we've already had a number of orders. It only went online yesterday. We've had a number of orders. There's effectively it will be at cost plus a small margin, so we will make a few dollars out of it. And as I said, it's primarily about raising the profile of the Warbirds facility and the function centre and the venue.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So sorry, I wasn't aware that council employed catering staff. I thought that when we sold the cafe, we no longer would need catering staff because that's been outsourced. But what you're saying now is, and I was also under the impression that we had a function centre that would be leased out and purely hiring a room. People would bring in their own caterers. So what you're telling me is that we actually have catering staff out there. How many do we have? What's this costing? Because it sounds like we've just gone into the catering business now.
No, not at all. We have staff out at the Warbirds that are attendants, visitor attendants for the facility. Some of them have unique skills, and one of those people has catering skills, and we're taking advantage of that person's skills. They were always employed as a catering as a person, knowing that they had those skills so that we could cater for functions and events. We're just putting those skills to good use.
And I'll put further that they're on a casual basis, so it's only when they're required. So it's not a permanent position that's actually in place.
Thanks.
Is that in competition then with us providing catering now and function catering? Is that in competition with local businesses and the local cafe who's just taken on the lease for us?
I don't believe it is, but there's no guarantee that the cafe will have exclusive access to selling food in that vicinity. We hired the cafe as a commercial lease. There's no, I guess, expectation that they will have the exclusivity of being able to sell food in that vicinity. They always knew that there was a function centre and a venue there that would be somewhat in competition, although they also have the opportunity of contracting to us for large functions as well. So that it is a mutual relationship.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I understand functions. Obviously, if the cafe doesn't want to do a function or someone else brings in their own caterer, that's, you know, seems perfectly reasonable. But I've also been advised that the catering that council is providing upstairs is almost on a daily basis. It's almost like a pseudo restaurant cafe up there having Devonshire teas and things like that. It doesn't sound like it's simply for someone having a function and bringing in their caterer.
To the best of my knowledge, Mr. Chair, the only catering we've been doing upstairs is for functions.
Yeah. I'm not sure where you're getting your information from there, councillor, but
Certainly
to
not.
my knowledge, and the mayor and I spend a fair bit of time out there drinking coffees from the Bent Prop Cafe, and the catering offered upstairs is quite sporadic, and it's very customised. Devonshire teas and the likes for events put on infrequently. So not sure where you're getting your information from there, but I'd suggest that's probably maybe a falsehood.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, from that information, I ascertained that we do actually have catering staff out there, which was a surprise to me. So will there be a separate business item breakdown like we had for the cafe that says what expenses we're putting into catering for events and what revenue we're getting back specifically if we're running it as a business?
We would have a way of determining that, but I don't think it was part of our normal reporting. We don't normally report down to that level. If that's a particular request from this committee, the committee can request it.
I can't see that being a problem. I think that's probably a good idea. You know, I think that avenue that the business administrators have worked down has been rather profitable and got good interest in the facility, and that's what it's about out there, is the council doing its best to make these things work.
Just a comment through you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Flaherty, you mentioned there that the cafe has been sold. Can I make it very clear it's not sold, it is leased. And the only other comment, damned if you do, damned if you don't. We're trying to bring the debt together and running a function centre out there. That's why we've got a liquor licence, and we've got a person there that can supply. If you want to go out there and book the facility and not do anything, we can cover you. And what's it do to the line? It helps the bottom line. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, it must have been a slip of the tongue. I was aware that we hadn't sold part of the building and that we were merely leasing it. But yeah, I don't think it's a matter of damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think, you know, if we are going into the catering business, you know, that is a business decision. Certainly it was always going to be a function centre, which is great. And I hope that lots of people use it. But yeah, going into catering, I think is a different matter.
All right, thanks for your opinions. Have we
one
got
question,
a
Mr. Chair.
mover there?
I just have one.
Oh,
question.
sorry, Councillor Burns.
Before the works were done on the taxiways, were all the users informed?
Yes, all users were informed of the impact. I think it was a 24-hour or a couple of 24-hour shutdowns they were advised of. Yep.
Have we got any more questions or comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm fine.
Thanks. Good to hear. Now, do I have a mover for the airport committee? Move Councillor Burns, seconded myself. All those in favour? All those against? Councillor Flaherty, thank you. We shall move on to notation of questions from the last. I don't think I need to take a vote on this, do I? Just need to note it. Yep, we'll note that. And also, I think going on our earlier discussion, if we table going on your request, I'm happy to table the letter from the minister, which discussed the corporate finance, the finances of the Shire. Hopefully this group can work diligently to improve our positions, which has obviously been made clear that we need to. But also, I think it's reasonable transparency that is there for this group just to remember what our role is here. And so anyway, I think we're at the end of. We don't have to cover anything else. Any more questions or comments from councillors?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just the questions from last time. It just wasn't very clear to me, and Wayne, perhaps you can clarify. Is it 69% of the leasable space in Campbell's Corner is currently being leased, with only 31% needing to be leased? Is that correct? I just couldn't work out that breakdown of
31%.
Yeah,
Do you want, sorry, if you look at the table on page 69, councillors, there's a list of I guess, shops that take up space. The first shop is the library. It's not obviously a leasable space. It's going to be a community space, and that takes up 11.65% of the entire Campbell's Corner. The current leasable space is shops 2 through to the gym, and there is a vacant upstairs space. Now, of that, that takes up 31% of the total floor space. And there's non-leasable space, which includes quite a amount of area, which is the basement, walkway, stairs, and amenities. So that's been excluded. When you look at the community space that can be leased, of that 31%, the only portion that isn't leased is the vacant upstairs space. So 11% of the 30%, which is probably, what's that, in the order of 1/3.
So through you, Mr. Chair, you mentioned community space. I wasn't specifically asking about community space, just, you know, how many shops do we have? What's the relative floor space that can be leased, that is leased? Like, we're talking 31%, 60%,
There's
what do we have
31%,
leased and what?
31% that can be leased, and of that, 2/3 of that is currently leased.
That clears that up. Thank you. Wayne and General Manager there. All right. Well, that being the end of our discussions for today, I'll close this meeting at 9:51, please, Karen. Thank you. Thank you, councillors, and thank you, staff.